All right, folks. Today's topic is what's wrong with Gen Z. And Gen Z is, according to the alphabet, the last group of people. We don't have a drummer today. That would have gotten a badum-pa. But in all seriousness, Gen Z is comprised of the people born from 1997 to 2012. And if you pay attention to the headlines, then you probably know us as the generation that doesn't have sex, doesn't drink alcohol, isn't fun to work with, and maintains a balanced diet consisting of the 4 food groups: Dubai chocolate, disposable vapes, Tide Pods, and protein. But the truth is that the headlines don't tell the whole story. Although we haven't been here for long, the history of Gen Z is incredibly complicated. And in order to make it easier, we've adjusted our material for a modern audience. We couldn't get a GIF. Unlike generations before us, we weren't only raised by our parents, we were also raised by the internet. You know, a YouTube video showed us how to tie a tie. Crash Course with John Green helped us with our English homework. And the birds and the bees were taught to us, of course, by those 2 girls in that one ravishing cup. And thank goodness we had the internet as a resource, because our attention spans are worse than Alan Dershowitz's at his granddaughter's dance recital. You get it because he's looking at all the kids, because he's a that's all right. Never mind. We say this to say that it's hard for much of Gen Z to focus. 25% of us have ADHD, which is concerning when the other 75% of us are on Adderall just for shits and gigs. What did you think was going to happen when you put fentanyl in all the coke and made all the movies 30 seconds long and iPhone shaped? It's crazy. Actually, I got an update here about Punch the Monkey stuffed animal. Hold on.
Jay, the show.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh,
do the
yes.
show. Okay.
Attention spans. What was I saying? Yes! Racism. Gen Z was prophesized to be the most progressive generation in our nation's history. We're expected to be the folks that ended bigotry and smoking. However, sadly, both are more popular today than ever. All right, yeah, it's an uncomfortable truth, but this isn't the case across the board. Gen Z is arguably the most politically radical generation we've seen since the 60s. Yes, we tend towards more extremist views, be them far left or far right. And for that reason, many members of Gen Z actually ascribe to the horseshoe theory of politics, which is when you use a horseshoe to beat those you disagree with into submission. But on both sides of the aisle, Gen Z seems to also be a little bit more progressive than previous generations. We may have Nazis, but they're without a doubt the most open-minded Nazis there have ever been. Our white supremacists, guys, our white supremacists are Puerto Rican and have trans girlfriends. Sure, their coexist bumper stickers have the swastika where the X is, but they also have it on a Prius. You know what I'm saying? It's progress. There is one thing that unifies all members of Gen Z, though, regardless of where they stand politically. It's the reverence that they have for the Catholic Church. I'm just kidding, it's that they're poor. They're all poor. They're a bunch of good-for-nothing broke bums, guys. Let me tell you, chat. Gen Z's collective financial situation is so skibbity-cooked that when we look at our mobile banking apps, we don't even get to see how much money we have. They just show us a picture of a Victorian child dying of consumption. But what we lack in property or savings, we make up for in cultural disruption. You know, Gen Z has evolved to the point where we not only post everything, but we are post everything. We are post-modern. We're post-serial because we're protein maxing, okay? We're even post Malone because we found out he hangs out with Morgan Wallen. The reason that we are trying to push past the culture of here and now is because the conditions of the current moment have disillusioned us by and large. And to better understand how we became so disillusioned, we're going to ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of 2 groups of people who had very different experiences in the same country, only a few decades apart. First, imagine you're a boomer. The flash goes off above Hiroshima. Your father dropped the bomb, your mother was riding shotgun in the Enola Gay, and the sweet smell of uranium-235 awakened something carnal in them both. They spent the entire flight back to Hawaii making you, and in 1946, when you pop out, the American economy is a-boomin'. Second, imagine you're a Zoomer. You're born in, let's say, September 11th, 2001. Between the first and second towers falling. Despite all the hubbub on the news, your mom assures you everything's going to be just fine. Sure, Dad spent his last moments of life whipping up omelets in the windows of the World Restaurant. But at least your college will be partially subsidized by Jon Stewart should you ever choose to go. You're 10 months old when America enters the longest war in our nation's history, but it's okay because Songs About Jane is right around the corner. Luckily, your mom invests Dad's life insurance payout in Lehman Brothers. God bless the subprime mortgage, am I right? Back to the boomer. You're 15 years old now. You ask Tammy O'Shea to the American Legion dance. One thing led to another, and kablam, she's pregnant. You're only not prepared to be a father, so you lie about your age, enlist in the Air Force, and tell James McCarthy that poor pregnant Tammy is a communist. Problem solved. You napalm Korean elementary schools for a year, and Tammy is not only deported to Cuba, but ends up going steady with Che Guevara. Back to the Zoomer. It's 2008. You're in Miss Omlin's second grade class learning about shapes and symmetry. The word of the week is symmetry. In Mom's world, however, the word of the week is foreclosure. She pulls you out of school early today, crying all the way home. But you're doing just fine because McDonald's has Spiderwick Chronicles toys in the Happy Meals. Next thing you know, Mom not only has lost her job at Bear Stearns, but Bernie Madoff stole your Happy Meal toy. What a shame. Back to the boomer. After receiving the Medal of Honor for your heroic war crimes in Korea, you move to Dallas and open a gun store. On November 21st of 1963, a charming former Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald stumbles into your store, declaring loudly that he plans on acting alone. He's a whitey, so you don't question anything. You sell him 3 rifles and he leaves with 2 other guys you hadn't noticed until now. With the profits of that single sale, you purchase 100 acres of land in Southern California, a shabby little town called Santa Monica. The realtor tells you it's Spanish for Christmas drag queen. Arriba, am I right? Back to the Zoomer. The year is 2016, and you push a child into a gorilla pit at the Cincinnati Zoo. You have damned humanity. Back to the boomer, the year's 1980. You're high on cocaine. Hell yeah. Another guy who's high on cocaine hands you $1 million. Like literally on the street, he likes to cut you. It's $1 million. He gives you $1 million. You question nothing. You retire at 35 and spend the rest of your life going to the doctor recreationally because it's either you do that or hang out with your wife. Gross. No thanks. Zoomer, it's March 2020. You're chugging along through your senior year of high school. The best years of your life are right around the corner. Going to college, hanging out with large groups of people within a 6-foot radius of one another. Summer 2020's gonna be lit. You meet up with a friend for a meal. Your pal spent his Christmas break in Wuhan, China. You ask him about the trip, have a good laugh. That laugh, however, turns into a cough. Silently, you ask yourself, hey, why can't I taste my Tide Pods? Boomer, you're 6 weeks into the plandemic. The Wuhan flu has locked you up in the house. You're forced to look at your wife for the first time in 20 years. You're upset to see she's aged poorly. It's dreadful. You turn to the phone. They've got this new Facebook that's just videos of these young ladies dancing, and it's awesome. You sit on the porcelain throne with all the stuff you panic bought at the grocery store and scroll, baby, scroll. Zoomer, it's 2024. You earned your bachelor's degree and master's in 4 years. Way to go, kid. You've overcome so much, and you finally get to put that comp sci degree to good work. You get hired at Palantir, and on your first day at the office, Peter Thiel invites you into his office, and then he chloroforms you. You wake up to find out that you're hooked up to a computer that's not only using you as a battery, but also surveilling some boomer in Santa Monica that likes the D'Amelio sisters way too much. What we're trying to say is that history has not been kind to anyone. But the fact remains that Gen Z has dealt with more volatile economic, political, and cultural conditions in 25 years than boomers have in 70. The world we've been handed is vastly more unstable than the world our elders were born into right after World War II. And while their world was no utopia either, the chaos of today far outweighs the chaos of yesteryear. And if you're having trouble believing that, then let me explain that in a language that everybody can understand. Money. Contrary to what our president claims, the economy is neither big nor beautiful, and it hasn't been for quite some time. From 2019 to 2026, we've seen the overall price of goods and services increase by 33%, just in 7 years, and that's not good or serviceable. But when you push that bar even further to, say, 1999, that number jumps to 110% in 30 years. By the way, I wrote this joke 2 weeks ago. It was 96. I had to edit this 2 nights ago because we started a fucking war with Iran. But that's all right. That's all right. We're all feeling the brunt of the cost of things, but especially Gen Z is right now because they're just starting their time being financially independent adults. And they're not only fighting inflation right now, Zoomers are also faced with an unprecedented student loan crisis. Gen Z was encouraged, even pressured, to go to college, and it's beginning to seem like that investment doesn't pass muster the same way it once did. A recent study showed that the average public university student borrows $32,000 to attain a bachelor's degree. And that's just public universities. Public universities, of course, are the ones that, the schools with the big open windows that perverts can look in through. Private universities make so much money, they can actually hire the perverts to teach. So... But perverts aside, students are borrowing more than ever to acquire a degree that isn't helping much when it comes to finding a job. Only 30% of Gen Z college graduates work in fields that are related to the degrees. It's hard to get a job or even it's hard to keep a job too these days. Even working in government. A friend of mine recently lost his job chewing food for Dianne Feinstein. An entire industry died when the senator did, folks. Keep that in mind, please. But at least, despite that, students are being given checks for $1 million upon graduate. I'm sorry, what's that? No, I'm reading this stat. That stat came from an alternate universe where things are nice. I apologize. A universe where Harambe is still alive, where Newsmax has been replaced with syndicated reruns of Stanley Tucci's Searching for Italy. A universe where my dad listens. You know what? We're going to move on. Fortune magazine reported that 84% of Gen Z are delaying major milestones like marriage or having kids so they can buy a house. And as a matter of fact, the only Zoomers who own property and are married are those Mormon wives who live those secret lives. But putting major milestones on the back burner isn't helping all that much. Gen Z only makes up 4% of all home buyers as of 2025. The financial tide is rising, and young people have no choice but to tread water. And the economy isn't the only thing that is putting baby in the corner. Pew Research found in 2022 that daily internet usage among American teenagers has risen from 92% in 2015 to 97%. And they still aren't calling their mothers, by the way, which is shameful. Almost the entirety of our culture and public discourse have shifted to the internet. The way that media is enjoyed now is communally online, and if you're not online, you don't get to participate. And not participating means that you miss out. Gen Z is without a doubt the most active group of netizens, and that's in part due to this collective fear of missing out on the zeitgeist. If there's one thing you could say about Zoomers, is that we're a bunch of raging FOMosexuals, in all honesty. It's the truth. Some jokes you keep in the show because they're for you. You know what I mean? That's all you know. But the internet has given us unprecedented access to knowledge, art, and avenues of communication. All this possibility, however, came with the massive impacts on the mental health of America's youth. Recently, 10,000 members of Gen Z were surveyed, and the results were harrowing. Over half of young people reported being regularly depressed or anxious, which is concerning, but not nearly as concerning as that other half of people that are unfeeling sociopaths. Like, what the fuck? Oh, to be a 1950s housewife, vacuuming the same spot of the carpet for hours, ripped out of your mind on Quaaludes. God, I want to wear a dress. But, a Forbes survey from 2023 found that young people ages 16 to 24 feel lonelier than any other age group. According to the U.S. Surgeon General, loneliness can be as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Thankfully, China has not figured out how to put loneliness in a vape. Yet. Also, 2 out of 5 Zoomers go to therapy compared to 1 in 7 Boomers, and Boomer therapy isn't even real therapy. They just smoke a cigarette on a couch. Also, Gen Z has an abundance of folks who, rather than turn to help, they turn to escapism by way of social media. They use Instagram and TikTok to numb the stresses of the world, and that, in reality, makes things worse. It's a vicious cycle that they're putting onto themselves. And basically, on an unrelated note, one thing that I keep hearing about us that is true is that young people just ain't fucking, man. Especially you, actually. According to the New York Times, you get no bitches. But according... I have to tell you, by the way, our graphics team was like, let's find a guy, like a guy that looks like Jay. They were like, let's find a guy that looks like Jay and put him up there. But it's true. It's true, guys. According to Newsweek, 1/3 of young people don't even want children. That could be because of impending climate crises, a sense of apathy from the ruling class, a general feeling of hopelessness, the downstream effects of porn-addled brains, or it could just be because our dicks don't work. Which is why Blue Chew is a sponsor of today's show. Have you ever wanted to carve quartz with your dong? Well, now you can. With Blue Chew, the only ED medication outlawed at the Olympics. Hole punch a stop sign or your money back. I'm not hard right now, but I could be at a moment's notice. Blue Chew. Boy-yo-yo-yo-yoing. But back to the take. Even if they wanted to have kids, there's a large portion of them who would not be able to. More than 1 in 3 Gen Z adults describe themselves as celibate, and 1 in 5 can call themselves involuntary celibate. Surprise, surprise, the first statistic is primarily women, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense that Gen Z doesn't want to have sex. The vast majority of us had our first time on Epstein's Island with the late Dr. Stephen Hawking, which is more so of a medical miracle than anything. But in all honesty, if the current material conditions are so bad that we no longer want to reproduce, I feel like that means we've failed as a species, which is crazy because I feel like reproducing is supposed to be the fun part, right? I mean, I would never know. I've never taken Blue Chew. Maybe that graphic was right. But what I'm trying to say is that overwhelmingly across the board, through every facet of life, Gen Z feels powerless. We only have one guy in Congress our age right now, and the most powerful Gen Z person that ever worked in government was the Doge employee known simply as Big Balls. For an allegory on the current situation right now, look no further than to the presidency of Joe Biden, who made leaps and bounds for people who recreationally shit themselves in public. Young people were promised that an old man would rid the world of all their problems, and then he didn't. And when we pointed out that he was shitting the bed, and then the couch, and then the podium, we were told to shut up, or we would ruin everything for everybody. And as a direct result of that, now we have someone in the White House who fucks the couch Biden shit on. The couch, by the way, is a metaphor for the American people. What we're saying here is that we are Charlie Couch. We carry the cushion. Currently, boomers make up over 40% of Congress, which is a hell of an overrepresentation when you consider that they make up 20% of the population. Now, that would be fine if those people thought like Chief Seattle. The legendary Duwamish tribe leader once said, "We don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children." One would think that this aged and wise 40% congressional voting bloc would have our interests in mind. The interest in mind of those who they are borrowing the earth from. But they don't. The gist of all of this is that the people who borrowed the world from us are handing it back in a worse off condition than they found it. They did not rewind the metaphorical blockbuster VHS copy of The Empire Strikes Back, and when they returned it, they spoiled the ending for us. Which is why we would like to issue 2 calls to action this episode. The first is to boomers tuning into the show via fax machine. You are in the unique position of seeing your children and grandchildren in worse off positions than you were in. And as opposed to offering them aid or wisdom, you offer us the age-old adage of, "Damn, bro, that sucks." You should not feel sorry for us that the world is a shit show. other people your age made it that way. Instead, spend the time that you have left on this earth helping us make it better. So we can make the same for our children. And then the second thing I'd like to offer is for Zoomers, the fellow Zoomers here watching this show, in 30-second clips on TikTok, of course. The world is a very dark and scary place right now. And from time to time, when we were young, we were plugged in this matrix that was designed to bring us down every single day of our lives. And we have it right in our pockets. We can access it at any time. And it may be making you feel hopeless and lost and broken. And if that is the case, then that's great. You're off to a great start. Because that means you're aware of those feelings. And the first step to getting out of this matrix is utilizing awareness. You have to be aware of the things that are making you feel this way, the media that you consume, the places you go, the people you hang out with, the input that you're taking in. Be aware of those things. Because the minute you have awareness of them, they no longer have power over you. You're probably feeling very anxious about your future. And while it's tempting to numb the anxiety by scrolling, the only way we fundamentally change it is to take action. And if those in power will not help us fix the world, then we need to take the responsibility into our own hands, because right now we're borrowing it from our own children. And their safety and security outweighs that of those who have had their time to live long and thrive. And that right there is our take, everybody. Thank you so much. Little turbulence when we landed the plane.